I think knowing your struggles and knowing what's happening and knowing your inner psyche, I think that's really like a blessing that we have that and we can have those conversations. I think the problem is where we get stuck there. And instead of having the conversation of this is the issue that I have or something that I'm working through or something that the pain that I have, we kind of say like, that's my parents' fault. And then we kind of look at all the other relationships and think, how could I fix all my other relationships? And we're not thinking about how can I fix the relationship with my parents.
Hello there, I'm Tanya and you are listening to Human and Holy. Today's episode is a conversation about one of the 10 commandments, honoring our parents, the mitzvah that is both between us and God and us and other people. Today's conversation primarily focuses on the experience of struggle with this mitzvah, how to find a deep sense of appreciation for this mitzvah in our lives, even if we have challenging backgrounds with our parents or imperfect relationships with them, as many people do. This is a conversation about finding compassion for the ways that even the most perfect parents do not give their children everything that they need, how this mitzvah of honoring our parents is actually essentially between us and God, how honoring our parents can free us to have more true and deep relationships within our own experiences, how sometimes we have to really dive deep into healing the animal soul in this area in order to access the divine transcendent voice within us. This could be a sensitive and challenging topic for some, but I think even just having the conversation is thought-provoking. Talking about this mitzvah, asking what blocks us from this mitzvah, just raising our own awareness about it can shift the way we interact with our parents and with our children too. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to ask you for a quick favor. If you listen to Human and Holy and gain anything from the work that we do, I want to invite you to make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen. And if you've already subscribed, then leave us a rating or a review. It's a small lift for you, but it really pushes us forward. It helps other people find the podcast, people who are looking for this godly content, and it will help us expand to bring you the best guests and content that we possibly can. And I promise to pay it forward to you by continuing to pour my heart and soul into offering you conversations, Torah, that can deepen your experience of your life, Judaism, and connection to God and yourself. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome to Human and Holy.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you here. Today's topic is, well, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
My name is Cagan. I'm a mom of 6 children, thank God. I'm on shluchos in San Diego. And that's me.
What's your favorite part of being on shluchos?
I was worried you'd ask me that question. What's my favorite part? My favorite part is just living your whole life in line with, like, every part of your life you can use in the service of Hashem, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. There's an umbrella of godliness over your entire life.
Right. It's like, oh, my house needs new something. It's like, oh, that's for my shluchos, Like,
it's godly. I think that's true about any Jewish life.
Yeah, but it's like so much more like,
yeah, it's concentrated.
It's like I need cleaning help all the time because like my house is my shul,
Right. People are coming through all the time. And yeah, well, I love that.
So it really your whole life is just permeated with that feeling of mission and purpose. So it's nice.
Today, we're going to be tackling a pretty big topic, which is keeping of aim, honoring our parents. This is a conversation that I don't think we're really having a lot right now in today's day and age. It's one of the 10 commandments. What does it mean to honor our parents? And we're going to be exploring our relationship with our parents, what role it plays in our relationship with God and our Judaism, how to look at our parents, especially when we have hurt in that relationship too, and everything under the umbrella of that topic. So I'm very excited. So one of the 10 commandments is Chabad avicha v'simecha, honor your mother and your father. What does that mean to you?
So this is like the biggest one. It's really the hardest one. I think it says in Gemara that this is the hardest mitzvah. And there's a story about I think a Tanya or one of the sages in the Gemara who was born as an orphan. And he said, oh, I wish I'm never going to have this opportunity to honor my parents. And he was sad about it. But then he said, as he got older and he learned more about the mitzvah, he realized that he kind of dodged the bullet. And there's such a hard mitzvah, it's so difficult that he would never have been able to actually fulfill it. So I think to me, the mitzvah is, I kind of wanted to go into a little bit later about that a little bit, but it's really to me like the hardest mitzvah. I think it means, it's the deepest part of us, like this relationship that we have with our parents and all the beliefs that we have and all the, our childhood everything about the way we were raised, like the roots that grew us are all based on our parents. So I think it's a really, really hard, it's a really hard topic. I think it's a really hard mitzvah, and it's very painful, and it's very, it's very deeply painful to not have a good relationship with your parent. Mm-hmm. And I think that the mitzvah, by fulfilling it properly, it will bring us the deepest healing as well.
Okay. So what does it mean to fulfill it properly?
Okay. So there are like the halachas of the mitzvah, and I don't really want to go into that now. I think anybody can like kind of search that up. But really, it's about honor and respect. And some of the little things are, you're not allowed to disagree with your parents. They ask you for something, you have to do it. Can't sit in your parents' seat. You have to provide them for things. But what I really want to speak to today is more about the spirit of the law and not the law itself.
Okay.
So just like you have, let's say, Shabbos, and you have all the halachas of Shabbos, and you can follow all the laws to the T, but you don't tap into that spirit of Shabbos, the feeling of Shabbos, the community, the connection to Hashem. So you're kind of missing out on a big piece of the mitzvah, even though you're doing all the halacha. So I think with honoring parents, I kind of want to talk about the spirit of the law, and like the emotions behind it and the feelings behind it and the healing behind it, as opposed to like the actual halacha.
Right. It is interesting to note that it's specific halachos though, because I think that when we think about honoring parents, most of us think about it just in terms of what the spirit means, as opposed to there actually being halachos related to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because it's like, which comes first? Like, if you disrespect your parents in your heart, but you respect them publicly, are you fulfilling the mitzvah? But I guess it's like Shabbos. It's like anything. It's like any mitzvah. Like the insides and the outsides should hopefully match. That's the ideal. That's the goal.
We're looking for both.
We're looking for both.
So you mentioned that honoring your parents can bring you your own sense of deep healing. Very often, the reason why people struggle to honor their parents is because of childhood wounding or experiences of control that continue into adulthood that causes them to distance themselves from their parents or to dishonor their parents, or to feel that their parents are more a source of pain than someone to honor in their lives. Obviously, this is not everyone's circumstance, but this can often be like one of the stumbling blocks in front of this mitzvah and experiencing this mitzvah. Can you talk to that experience?
Okay, so I want to first say that whatever I'm talking about, I'm not talking about my parents, and I'm not talking about your parents, Tanya. I don't want to talk about anybody's parents really that's listening. I'm really talking about an idea more than somebody's personal experience. And I think if everybody can kind of listen to it as more of an idea separate from their own experience, I think that would be a good way to kind of listen to the conversation and then see if it relates to you, if it fits you, if it works for you. But what I'm sharing here is a lot of ideas and not my personal story or anything. So I think that it is, so your question was, what to talk? I think that it's like, I think it's very painful. I think that there is a lot of pain. And I think we're really lucky in our generation that we're able to recognize the pain and we're able to give it a voice and we're able to talk about it. I think that's a very good part of healing. I think knowing your struggles and knowing what's happening and knowing your inner psyche, I think that's really like a blessing that we have that and we can have those conversations. I think the problem is where we get stuck there. And instead of having the conversation of this is the issue that I have or something that I'm working through or something the pain that I have, we kind of say like, that's my parents' fault. And then we kind of look at all the other relationships and think, how could I fix all my other relationships? And we're not thinking about how can I fix the relationship with my parents. I think that's like the missing link right here. Is like we're recognizing the problems and then we're not having the conversation about how do I now fix this relationship.
Well, if someone has attempted to fix the relationship, or meaning very often people don't focus on their parent relationship because
it's too painful.
It's too painful, or it feels like it's too baked in, or like the other person is in that position of like power control where it's like, well, you just have to listen to me. So I'm not going to listen to, there isn't a you necessarily that can be in that conversation. So if someone is finding themselves in that situation, how can they, because I love what you're saying here, which is that very often for many of us, for many people, a missing piece of their own healing or just facing their lives, becoming adults, is their relationship with their parents. So how can someone begin to mend that or really find peace with that if there isn't someone on the other side that's willing to be vulnerable with them and to face it?
Okay, so first of all, like I'm not talking about like crazy parents.
Yes.
Okay, we'll make that caveat. Also, even in halacha, there are boundaries. You can have boundaries. Just because your relationship isn't good doesn't mean you have to keep on making yourself abused, or you can set up boundaries and you can work through that. That's nothing to do, that's separate from honoring parents. I think that's available for us and that's fine. Okay, so I think that a lot of us are going on healing journeys. A lot of us are working on our inner growth. And a lot of us kind of working on our relationship with ourselves, working on our relationship with our children, with our spouses. And I think we know how to heal it. We know because we're working on it. We're working on ourselves, working on finding value in ourselves and finding, in looking at the positive and finding joy and finding gratitude. We're doing that in all other aspects of our lives. So I think people who are on a growth journey, who are healing themselves, they actually know how to do it. The question is, are we being asked to apply it to our parents also? It is basically impossible for any parent to be able to provide the needs of each child. There's different personality types. There's different, every child speaks a different language and the parents speak a different language. So there are some parent-child relationships that match up really well. And there are some that don't. And a lot of it is, the parents' insecurities or the parents' traumas or the parents' past generation stuff. But also a lot of it is just like personalities. And if you speak a different language than your child, then if your needs are different than your children's needs, often, it comes across as like terrible parenting. But it's not necessarily, it just means that they kind of speak a different language. Mm-hmm. There's this idea that Avram is chesed. Chesed is kindness. So Avram is a giver, let's say, and he is flow and openness and kindness, generosity. So he has 2 children, and one comes out good and righteous, and one comes out not good. And that's because chesed has its limitations. It's giving and giving, but it doesn't know how to kind of stop or see boundaries or borders. Then you have Yitzchak, who is gevura, which gevura is severity, but also I would say it's more like discipline. So he's very disciplined. The oldest son, gets the brachas. This is the way things are supposed to be. This is the order. This is tradition. And he follows everything according to the book. And that also has its drawbacks, and therefore he has one kid that's a tzaddik and one kid that's not. And it's interesting, this is exactly talking about in today's chitas, which is pretty nuts. So, and then you have Yaakov, who has 12 children, and they say mitase shlema, that all his kids are righteous. And Yaakov is this idea of tiferes. Tiferes is compassion or beauty, but really what tiferes is it kind of looks at the other person and it says, what does the other person need? Do they need more kindness right now? Do they need more chesed? Or do they need more gevura? Do they need more discipline? And it focuses on each person individually and gives each person individually what they need. So Yaakov looked at all his kids and he knew this one needs this one needs that. He gave them all different brachas, each one specific to them. And he looked at his son Yosef and he was like, Yosef is going to be the next king. He's going to be the next ruler. He's going to be in Egypt for all these years. He had this feeling maybe. So he's like, this child needs more. So he gives him more. So he basically gives each child what they need. But by doing that, he's also causing other problems, right? Because there ends up being all this fighting between the brothers. So even the perfect parent who gives each child exactly what they need, and especially Yaakov, who was a tzaddik, so it means he did it all for the right reasons and all for the holy purposes. Even in that situation, you might call there's no such thing as perfect.
I love what you just shared. I love that. First of all, depicting how Avraham was chesed and there are limitations to chesed. There's limitations to every person. And even when someone is the perfect parent, there's limitations there or other problems that arise. That no matter how devoted a parent is, there's always going to be, inadvertently probably, but there's always going to be some type of negative impact on the child along with all the positive impact. And so when we look back at our stories, it's very easy to put the ownership over that negative impact on our parents. And even if they technically gave it to us, meaning through their actions, well, this is what I want to ask you. When we look back at our life stories and we see the ways that our parents' limitations or personalities have impacted us, sometimes in beautiful ways and sometimes in harder ways, how can we reconcile that with showing them honor the way that the Torah asks us to, especially as you depicted so beautifully with all of these biblical characters, that no matter how perfect of a parent you are, you're still going to impact your children both for better and worse.
Okay, so I think first we have to have that belief that, we say a lot, our parents are the best they can. Our parents are the best they can, right? So internalizing that. But I feel like when people say my parents are the best they can, there's a lot of buts after that. Right? Like my parents did the best they can, but they didn't do a great job. And I think a different way of looking at it is that my parent gave me everything they had. So I think there's not a parent out there that says, I have so much compassion to give, and I have so much love to give, and I have so much patience and so much kindness, and I'm going to hold it back for my child. I think every parent gives everything that they have. So I think you can look at it as all the things I didn't get from my parent and all the things I need, or you could look at it as they gave me everything that they had. And I could look at that and I could see the goodness in it, even though it's not everything that I need, but it's what they had and they gave it to me. So an example that I've kind of thought of, if you just put into like numbers, right, and money, is like, let's say somebody says like, I needed $100,000 or 100,000 worth of love and security and structure, whatever it is, to be, emotionally whole. And my mother didn't give it. She didn't give me 100,000. She didn't give it to me. So you might say, how much did she give you? But did she give you anything? Yeah, she gave me 30,000. And you're like, why'd she only give you 30? That's all that she had. She only had 30,000. So you're like, oh, so you're going to complain now that your mother didn't give you 70? Or are you going to say, my mother gave me 30 and be so appreciative for the 30 that she gave me? And then I'm an adult now and I'm trying to be mature, and emotional maturity, I think, means is like saying, I didn't get the 70 and I recognize that. And I have to figure out how to get it myself and also appreciate the 30 that I got from my mother or from my father. Like, it's a different way of looking at it. Like, just because a parent they can only give what they have. They can only give what they have. And they do. And sometimes it's very limited and sometimes it's only like, it's very little. And it's unfortunate and it's very sad and it's very difficult if that was your mother, 100%. But that's your life story. And you can either complain about that and be resentful for a very long time, or you could say, I'm an adult now and I'm responsible for the choices I make, and I'm going to figure out how to fill in those missing gaps.
Yeah, it is enormously painful when that's your life story. When you needed an ocean of love and you got a teacup, and that, even knowing that that's all that they had to give you, it can be very painful.
Very painful.
So I just want to really say, everyone has different situations, but if someone was in a family where they needed chesed and there was no chesed, it's brutal. Like, it's a real wound to tend to.
Yes. And
with that being said, and you're describing being able to take ownership over your life story going forward.
I think also a lot of it, I mean, of course it's our parents and their limitations, 1,000%, but also a lot of it has to do with us. Like, I could say, oh, my parents didn't give me a stitch of chesed. I'm such a chesed person. So a lot of it talks about, a lot of noticing is also noticing yourself and understanding what you needed based on your personality. Because maybe your parents, what you didn't get from your parents is often it's your personality, it's what you needed, and it tells you a lot about yourself.
Oh, it's learning figuring out what you were missing through understanding yourself better. And then you can also give yourself what you need or seek out ways to get it in healthy ways. Yeah.
I can give like another example if you want.
Sure.
If that's helpful. So there's a personality type. I just, let's say a mother or a father. And on paper, they're like, they're the perfect parent. They're kind, they're kind, they're present, they're consistent, they're available, they're non-judgmental, they're funny, they're hardworking. It's like you meet these kind of people and they're very you really like them. And I'm just basing this on like different temperaments and personality types, which I know a little bit about. And 9 out of 10 kids are going to be like, this was the best parent. Emotional security, safety, secure attachment, like the best parent. But then you might have a child who, by nature, this is just their nature, and it's like maybe 1 out of 10 kids, not very common, who's like a highly sensitive empath. And their whole world revolves around their emotions. And their whole world revolves around relationships and connection. And what they need from their parent is deep emotional connection. But the parent doesn't know how to give deep emotional connection. They're about consistency. They're about showing up. They're about being available. They don't care about deep emotional connections. They care about showing up, being there, being available, doing what's right? So it makes them such a wonderful person, but they can't give that child that emotional connection because they don't know it. It's not in their psyche. They don't understand it at all. So the child's like very, can be very resentful and very hurt because when you need deep emotional connection, you don't get it. It's very painful. But even in the situation where the parent gave everything and they did so much, they never yelled at their kid. They were always there. They were always available. They were always present. They were always helpful. They couldn't meet this deep need of the child, but it's a dynamic. And like, I think accepting that that's what it is just very helpful. And looking at yourself and saying, I need a deep emotional connection. My parent gave me what they have and they couldn't give me that. And going back to what I said, like, how do I get that now for myself?
Right.
And then you might say, well, why doesn't the parent change for the child? Because it's not their language. They're consistent. Consistency means I do the same thing every day.
Right.
And change is not in their vocabulary, right? So like every personality type is going to have the good, it's going to have the bad, it's going to have, and so I think we have to just recognize that and understand ourselves, understand our parents, what they were able to give us, what they weren't able to give us, and then kind of fill in the gap ourselves.
I would love to hear how you differentiate between naming, like that dynamic that you described, where a highly sensitive person is placed in a family that's consistent, maybe even joyful, structured, the most loving, but not necessarily deeply emotionally attuned. And that could be a really painful experience that formed them and formed their lives and their connections and something that they have to work through as an adult. How do you describe the difference between naming the impact that our upbringings had on us versus blaming, shaming, or vilifying our parents?
Okay, so how do I describe the impact?
How do you describe the difference between naming the impact versus vilifying a parent?
Okay, so I think naming the impact would be taking ownership. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of like saying I'm taking responsibility for my actions. I take responsibility for my choices right now. So I recognize what I got, what I didn't get, what my needs are, what they aren't, and I try to fill in the gaps. Blaming is just a dead end. It's just saying it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault, and not really like working through that. And also, I think that the difference would also be blame and acceptance, or even like there's separation and acceptance. So like, or you hear it a lot of times when you hear like the parenting stuff. It's like it's not about the blame. It's not about the blame. But we say that, so it's not about the blame, but it's also not about like going further than that. I think that the only helpful part of recognizing is how we can heal ourselves from it. So the blame serves no purpose. I don't see it being helpful in any way. I think the only thing that would be helpful is recognizing what we needed, what we got, what we didn't get, and then trying to figure out how to get that ourselves. I don't see where blame is helpful in any way.
So the difference to you is being able to name it in a way that's constructive going forward so that you could live a life that's unimpeded by whatever negative experiences you had as a child.
Exactly. I think that we talk a lot about like, clearing negativity, working on ourselves. And I think that that's part of it. This is part of the story. This is the negative I have from my childhood, and I want to clear that for myself. I want to work through that, work through those issues. So as long as we are fighting that relationship with our parents or we're not healing it, I think that we're not able to be fully present for our own children and in our own relationships. So actually, I heard Shay's Taub say this. He said it like 20 years ago. It was an old class he gave, so I hope he still believes this. But he said that if you try to break the cycle based on your anger or resentments or any negative feelings, he said it's not going to break it. It might just skip a generation or something, but it's not going to be gone. But if you say like, my parent did my parent, I'm doing me, I'm doing things differently, then you're free to break that cycle. So I think that's also another big problem is that if we don't heal this, I think we kind of either pass it on or we make a lot of mistakes in our parenting. And this is very general. I'm not thinking of anything specific, but what ends up happening is that we say, oh, I'm going to be this kind of mother because I didn't want that for myself. As opposed to saying, what does my kid need? What does my child need? Instead, we're taking care of our own needs instead of taking care of our children's needs. And I think that is really the part that is really like the whole picture, is that when we heal that relationship with our parents, we're free to be, and I mean heal, I don't mean heal like you have to be best friends with your mother. I don't mean that you have to even have a good relationship with her. I mean freeing yourself of your negative feelings about the relationship and your anger and your resentment. And it's very difficult and very hard, and maybe it's a lifetime's work. But as you free yourself of that, you're much more free to be available for your own children and your own relationships. Otherwise, you're doing things because you didn't want them. And it's not really necessarily what the kid needs.
Meaning it's in reaction to your upbringing. It's centering your own experience as opposed to being able to channel what each child needs.
Right.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. When you describe having the negative experience and being able to clear that so that you could show up for your children more fully and not projecting your own childhood onto theirs. What does that look like to you? What do you mean when you say that? I see that honoring our parents is this goalpost, that we should be lifted by the teaching to honor our parents, that we know better than the current culture. We do live in a culture that disrespects elders in general, for sure parents, and there is often a culture of blame for parents. So what does it look like to clear our own negative experience so that we could live up to that ideal of truly respecting and honoring our parents?
Okay, so in terms of clearing on ourselves, I think that might be whatever healing modalities you use or whatever work you're doing, that's like something that I can't really talk to. Everybody has their own. But the idea of it, not like the practical part of it, but the idea of it is that it's just really accepting our parents, accepting. This is who they are. This is who they were. This is their limitations. This is what they gave me. And like, that's it. There's no drama attached to it. There's no story attached to it. I have my pain. I have my resentments. I have my anger. That's mine right now, and I'm going to work on that. So I think that's first of all. It's just like, they did things their way. I'm going to do things my way. There's no drama. I don't have to like be angry about it. I don't have to be mad about it. And if I am, then let me work through that. Right? Is that like, it's just kind of separating. It's just separating this like story of like, it's like at some point, like, it's my story now. It's not my parents' story anymore. It's not what happened to me. It's who I am.
Which you're actually making the case for radical acceptance of the situation in your own life so that you're not addressing it with the parent. A person doesn't necessarily have to address it with their parents specifically. It's their own work.
It's their own work.
It's respect of parents, accepting parents, two different things. And I don't bring them into this conversation because it's my own stuff. It has nothing to do with them.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about them in terms of like what I need to know about myself because I didn't get what I needed, then that's a great conversation to have. But that's all it needs to be, really, right? It's more of the identifying and noticing. And I think that's good enough. And I make it as if it's so simple. It's very difficult. I'm not like, this is not easy. But I just think in any relationship, it's like that, right? You take ownership for what you're responsible for. That's any kind of healing is what we're doing there, right? Like the radical acceptance. We're doing all these things in so many areas of our life. I'm gonna keep on saying it over and over, but that idea of like, just do it for your parents also. Don't say like, they need to change for me, or this is pain I'm gonna hold on for the rest of my life, or, I can never get over this. This is a relationship and we can work through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And in terms of me, of my own healing, not in terms of like having this deep relationship with my mother. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in terms of me and my own healing.
That there's a huge benefit in it for us.
Yeah. So I'm kind of saying two things, but when you heal when you heal it through yourself, of course you're already going to have a better relationship with your mother, right? So it comes together. But I think it's just, we need to separate. Yeah.
Around Shavuos time, when I was learning Megillas Rus, I was so struck by how even a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law connection is completely not random. It was a very beautiful depiction to me of how every single person in our life, but for sure our family connections, are not random. Like, we weren't accidentally given certain parents. We didn't just like happen to be sister-in-law with someone, brother-in-law with someone, daughter-in-law of someone. Every single person that are put into those intimate relationships are there for a reason and are very deeply connected to our neshama's mission, purpose, avodah, work that we have to do in this world. And it's very easy to write some of them off as being random, but none of them are random.
Yeah.
You don't see that any more than with your own parents.
Your own parents, exactly. So, it's that. I think that's why, like, it's in the Ten Commandments. I think that's why it's so fundamental, is honoring parents, because it's really honoring Hashem. Because when you honor your parents, like, what is more, less out of my control and more hashgacha pratis, and has more impact and more effect on my life than my parents, who my parents are. So it's the most. Has the biggest impact, and it's the most out of my control. So if you're going to talk about Hashgacha Pratis, like if you're going to talk about believing in Hashem and believing that everything Hashem does is for a reason and for the good, like there is no deeper place than with your relationship with your parents. And I think that's also where it brings like the greatest healing, which is even above just the emotional healing, but it's like the godly healing, is being able to like accept everything from Hashem. And that happens, I think, maybe that's why it's so difficult, because it's so deeply connected to our parents, because it's direct from Hashem, like direct.
It's our birth story.
It's our birth story.
I love how you said that. No greater impact in our lives and no more, and the thing that's the most out of our control. We wouldn't be born without these people, these parents. Like these two specific people that came together to form us, we wouldn't exist. So you see how Hashem placed you.
Your personality, your DNA, your name, your height, like all these little things, everything about like your intellectual abilities, your physical abilities, everything that you have. And are you willing to say like, Hashem, I accept it all just exactly the way you gave it to me? I think that's why like they say that the Stars of Deborah, the Ten Commandments are like fundamental, because this is fundamental. It's not just like, it's not just, feel good or whatever. This is like all the way goes right back to our relationship with Hashem. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I also think that, they say like, that there's the Ben Adam Lamakam and then Ben Adam Lachaveri of the Ten Commandments, right? You have the first 5 are between man and God, and the second are between man and man. And you would think that honoring your parents is between man and man, but no, it's between man and God. Because by honoring your parents, you're actually honoring Hashem. Mm. And I also think that maybe it's like a bridge, where it's like, by honoring Hashem, through honoring your parents, it kind of like flows right into the next 5, which are between man and man, because I think that by viewing this relationship as directly, by honoring your parents, viewing everything from Hashem, and like freeing yourself of all this of all these burdens and opening yourself up to accepting Hashem in your life, it's going to flow right into all your other relationships. Mm. So does that make sense? It's kind of like it's between man and God, and then it like flows right into between man and man, because it's going to affect everything else.
Oh, I love that so much. I think that's so beautiful, and I actually think that's such a beautiful entrance for anyone who has challenging parents, but still wants to do
everyone
this
who has challenging parents.
Everyone.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
Anyone who has a difficult relationship with their parents in any way, to acknowledge that this is about God and not about the parents, because sometimes some parents, unfortunately, don't necessarily deserve it on a human level. But this is something that Hashem is asking of us, and we can do it for God as opposed to for this person. And then I think that's very beautiful that that's going to spill over into our own relationships. Like we give that to Hashem, which is doing something that we might not understand, and then God will repay us by paying us forth in healthier relationships, healthier parenting for our own children, and not pass it, like accept from Hashem, do what Hashem has asked of you, and then be repaid in your own relationships.
Yeah, so it's like every mitzvah, like you do it for Hashem, but also it gives you so much inner peace and inner healing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's very, very powerful, I think. Probably more powerful than any other mitzvah that could do that for you. Mm-hmm. Because the core, it's like your deepest core of who you are. Mm-hmm. And accepting that like whoever I am right now, from all the, the negative that I got from my childhood and all the things I didn't get and all the things that I wanted, that's all part of my story, and it's all from Hashem.
Do you think a piece of this is a struggle with accepting ourselves and how it's impacted us?
I don't know if I should say this, but I think honestly it's more of it's like I'm doing better. It's almost like we're almost pretending like we're on a higher level than our parents. Like, the previous generations did things this way, but I think we're kind of fooling ourselves into thinking that like, I don't know if I should say that, but I think that's kind of what it is. Like, whatever, they messed up. You're like, they did things right, they did things wrong. You did things right, you did things wrong. Or maybe they had abilities and you have better abilities than them. They were limited and you have more capabilities. Like, why do you have to feel like you have to put yourself higher than them or better than them. I think it's just foolish. I don't know. I don't want to say that online. I don't want to say it's foolish. I think we're kind of fooling ourselves a little bit.
You feel like this generation pedestals themselves above the generation that came before it.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I guess the generation is very broad. I feel like that's the conversations that we're having. I don't know what everybody's doing individually, but I feel like a lot of the conversations are like, we're doing better than our parents.
But isn't that the hope that every generation refines what came before them? Like, I am sure that the generation before us also said, well, we're doing better than our traumatized parents from the Holocaust did to us. Like, every generation wants to refine and better themselves for the next generation. And I think that
we're doing different. Why do we say they did the best they can with their generation? I mean, if you think about it, my parents were born in the 50s, like in the shadows of the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. Like, what does it even mean to be a parent 5 years after the Holocaust? Like, to be born 5 years after the Holocaust? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say that because I'm more emotionally available for my children, and like I said, it's not about my parent, I'm talking about this story that we're talking about. Therefore, I'm better. Like what are we talking about? There's no better or worse. It's just they had their stuff and they dealt with it the way they did, and we have our stuff. Are we doing better? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of problems. We got a lot of problems. Who's to know?
The hope is that we're trying to do the best that we can with what we have. Yeah, and I'm sure that every generation does and did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I love that point, which is that we don't have to see ourselves as being better than anyone else.
Maybe the first part of the process is recognizing, the pain and the hurt and what your parents didn't give you and what you didn't get. And I just think that that's only the beginning of the process. And I think that at some point you move on from that into acceptance and healing. So I think just depends on, I don't think it's healthy to be stuck there. Mm-hmm. That's all. Yeah, so another answer that Jay Stab had that was so good was that he said, we talk about Chassidus, we talk about bringing it into every part of our lives. Mm-hmm. They had the story of, this example that he gave was the wagon driver that was stuck in the mud, and then the Chassidim pulled him out. And it was like they learned the whole lesson of Avodas Hashem in their service of God from this guy being stuck in the mud. And he's like, how come it has to be, he said that all these modalities, we find Hashem there also. Mm-hmm. And if we are learning Chassidus, then we apply it to every part of our lives. And we find every part of our lives, it's like integrated into every part of our lives. So I think that we come from a perspective of Torah, and then we can integrate all these modalities into that, right? Or we understand them better because we understand Torah, or we have a reason that we're doing them because we understand Torah. There's a meaning behind it. So I think it's all intertwined. I think it's all connected, right? It's not like an or and.
No, not
an
at
and
all.
Or. So for sure, so for sure Torah is up here. And then we integrate that, Chassidus and Torah, we integrate that into all our experiences in our life. There's two elements here. I think that we have two parts of us. We have our neshama, we have our holy soul that has infinite inherent value, unchanging. And then we have our nefesh bahamis, which is our survival instinct. And I think that sometimes our nefesh bahamis gets in the way. And I think it's very strong sometimes. And I think we have to heal that in a nefesh bahamis way, which is like, it's universal, stuff that applies to everybody. Or like I just thought of an example today. It's like you have a dog that's like yapping and yapping. So you give it a bone and it's not happy. So you give it more. But the whole point is you want the dog to go away, right? You want the dog to go away. So you're feeding it in order for it to go away. So I think sometimes we have whatever inside of us, whatever our traumas are, or whatever our negative, whatever, or even our insecure attachments, or whatever it is that's keeping us from being like whole and healthy and in tune with our neshama. It's making a lot of noise. And we need to feed that. And we need to take care of it so that it quiets down, so it gets out of the way. I think it's really important because if we're just going to be feeding our neshama and ignoring this, it's like the dog might start barking louder and louder and louder. But also we don't want to feed it in order just to feed it either, right? We're kind of feeding it in order for just be quiet. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's that element that I think that But I think a lot of the healing is our Nefesh Bahamas healing. And there's actually another episode I did with a woman who's a psychodynamic therapist, Joanne Zagnov, and she, there's a ceiling to healing, that all these therapeutic models, they can offer you healing up to a certain point. But Torah is going to offer you transcendence above that, and that you're not going to get anywhere else. Does that, so even like when we were, so I don't think there has to be any fear. There never has to be fear, because if you believe Torah is true, there never has to be fear in anything, unless, like that's just not necessary. But also there are two parts, I think. I think healing our Nefesh Bahamas is, if it's getting in the way, like, you got to work through that, because otherwise you won't be available to serve Hashem. Mm-hmm. So if you're not finding your answers in Torah, either the answers are not being taught well enough, or your survival instinct and your needs are so loud and so strong that you need to feed them just so that they quiet down.
Right. But I would say it's not so that they go away or quiet down, but so that they're a more faithful servant to the divine soul.
Yes, eventually. Yeah, that's the highest level, yes.
But that's just even like being a human. Meaning transcendence.
Yeah, okay, you're right. You're 100% right.
Like transcendence is engagement with your humanity. Like transcendence is not silencing your animal soul in the corner or your humanity in the corner. It's being able to have a healthy sense of self that could channel your divine self.
Yes. Yeah. So, right. You don't want to, you don't want to necessarily quiet it. You want it to be available to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Instead of just, barking and making you crazy.
Well, the divine soul is not a body. It needs its body in order to do anything for Hashem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's also another thing. I think that healing, talking about back to our relationship with our parents, I think that exactly what it is like, I think healing your relationship with your parents, and like healing the whatever you have inside of you versus, in connection with your parents, I think that's universal. Somebody actually sent me a clip, a friend of mine, as we were talking about this thing, and it was an older actress who said that she was talking about this. And she said that she asked her mother once when she was younger, how come you never let me lean on you? And her mother said, because I was teaching you how to stand on your own feet. And she was trying to talk about how the love that her mother gave, the love that she had was the love that she gave. And for her mother, standing on her own 2 feet was the biggest love she could give. So this is universal, I think. And that's really like, Sarah has something to offer above this. And in everything, it's like that. I think in all our healing, I think we're going to hit a spot that's like the best that we can do as humans. But then there's a place, like I started talking about, like relationship with Hashem, talking about transcendence, talking about hashgacha pratis, talking about this big picture of like everything that came before you. Like that's like so much greater than anything you'll get just from healing this universal Nefesh Bahamas part of you. So I think that's really what, like, right, that Torah offers, is like, Torah offers something much greater than us. And sometimes, we can't always get there or sometimes it's part of the process of getting there is, doing the everyday things. But there's like a transcendence or there's something that you have to get higher than yourself, and that's only through Torah.
Yeah, I think that you brought the two pieces of this conversation together really beautifully with that. That at once there's a human being who may have challenging dynamics or real life experiences. And on the other hand, there's a transcendent call, and we could do both at the same time. We could serve Hashem, and we could rise above our humanity, and we could also face our humanity, and they don't have to contradict each other. I'd love to hear your vision for what it looks like for us to have this at once human relationship with our own childhood and experiencing ownership over our relationship with our parents, and also true respect for our parents and honoring our parents in a way that's channeled towards Hashem, in the way that God asks us to. What does that relationship with a parent look like in your vision?
Oh, wow. Okay, in my vision, I have to create a vision now. In my vision, it's so difficult because I'm thinking of like putting your parents on a pedestal, right? Like there's a relationship where they're above and we're not equals. On the other hand, I think of some parents and I'm like, they're my mother, I wouldn't put them on a pedestal. So it's really hard to like, what is that vision? You know what I mean? Like, I think that nowadays, a lot of the dir b'tachtonim that we're looking for, like bringing God into our lives, is bringing God into our own bodies. And this vision of, to me, the feeling that I have is like a freedom of when you bring Hashem into all parts of you, you bring godliness into all parts of you. Any negativity, you start saying, okay, what is that? And clearing it, like that to me is like, that's Geula. That's Mashiachtic, right? Like living in like complete alignment with Hashem. And I think if or when we could do that with our deepest, the deepest parts of us, because the deepest parts of us, that's like with our parents, I think a lot of the times, I think that's living like a free, that's living in a free Geuladic alignment with Hashem kind of life, right? Where we've cleared out all this baggage, all this negativity, and we're free. We're free to serve Hashem. We're free to be available. We're free to parent our children with love and without negativity. We're free to be honest with ourselves also. Like, there's so much that comes along with it. That really, to me, is the vision, like on a personal level of, I could say freedom. For me, I think of the word freedom because I think of like just being like lighter, because like you're getting rid of all this stuff. But really, it's like it's living in alignment with Hashem and living in alignment with like your best self, right? Because you've gotten rid of this, and then, like you said, serving Hashem to the best of your ability, believing that everything is exactly the way it's meant to be. Like all this is just so freeing to me.
I love that you used the word freedom just now. And I think that in addition to freedom, it's also being able to absorb the lessons of your past. Because we spoke about how Hashem put us in that situation for a specific reason, because there's lessons to be absorbed that are part of our neshama's purpose. So free, but also absorbing the good that even the hardships have to teach us.
And you just made me think of one other thought that I had, if you want. So another part of like Aseres Dibros, like this being like one of the Aseres Dibros, is that we honor what came before us. And I think it's also such an important part of our lives, is like looking back and saying like whatever came before me was like so miraculous and so important and so great that and if you look at it from like that global vision of like that big picture, it's like all these pieces came together for me to be here in this moment for my mission in my life. And by honoring our parents, we're like, not only honoring our parents, we're honoring like all the pieces and all this whole puzzle all the way back, 6,000, almost 5,500 years from all the way from Adam Rishon, all the pieces of the puzzle that came together to create me in my life right now in my world. And that gives me like, I'm part of this global picture. I'm part of something so much bigger than me. It's not just me and my little, my little story. It's like I'm part of this whole big story.
Yeah. I think as Jews, it's especially integral to be able to feel the legacy of the people who came before us. And what's coming to mind is the Lubavitch Rebbe's talk about Dinah and how he says that Dinah's outgoing nature was an expressed kernel from her mother who didn't have the courage to express it. So every single piece of our lives and our purpose very often is rooted in the people who came before us. And we have to be able to face and absorb and free what isn't ours and then own what is, because that's our neshama's mission.
That's our neshama's mission.
This was beautiful.
Really?
You're on air. You're on air saying that. I'm not taking that out. I'm sorry, I'm not taking that out.
Really?
Yes. I know. Yes. I think that this is an important topic that a lot of people wrestle with. I think it's important just to have the conversation, to do it imperfectly, to just show up and have this conversation, to spark other people's own perspectives. It's not about giving answers. It's about
having the conversation
and maybe sparking something for someone else. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating or review. It helps other people find the podcast, brings us so much joy. New episodes come out every Sunday and Wednesday morning. If you appreciate the work that we're doing, I want to invite you to partner with us. We are quite literally powered by people who believe in the work that we do and donate to Human and Holy, sponsor specific episodes, and just bring us into the world every single week, twice a week. Visit humanandholy.com/sponsor, where you can partner with us. You can dedicate a specific episode or just contribute to the work that we're doing. We love hearing from you, so email us at info@humanandholy.com with your feedback, guest recommendations, whatever you want to share. You can find us on Instagram at Human and Holy. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of these conversations. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.